Hey guys, if you're enjoying the content that I'm making, please click that subscribe button. Also remember to click that bell button and make sure to tick that box to send all notifications so you don't miss out on any videos. With that in mind, let's get on with the video. What's up guys, welcome to Munchkins Gaming, where we take your gaming to the next level. This is Munchkins logging in to bring you another Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia video. And this video is going to be my top 5 EX fight in the level 60 era. So, couple things before we start. Yes, I am still sick, and yes, I'm still releasing daily videos as of now, but I don't know how long I can do this since work is gonna come back and bite me on the weekend. But in the meantime, I hope you guys are enjoying these daily videos, and click like if you really enjoy me releasing videos daily. Smash those like buttons, and of course share this video as well. It really helps me a lot, and you know, it encourages me to make more videos. So couple of caveats before we start this video. What I mean by my EX fights is all of the EX fights that I will be choosing are all character event based EX fights, so no lost chapter, no heretic events, just purely character event and their EX fight. So if you think there's a lost chapter that was a lot harder than the EX fights that I've picked, well, they're not considered in this video. So maybe I'll do a separate video with the lost chapter for the level 60 era. Who knows? Of course, the last thing is this is just my own opinion, and this is just based on my experience playing the game, and this is going to be, of course, in the global version of Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia. So without further ado, let's start this with my number 5 pick, which is Noctis EX. Now, a couple of things with Noctis EX that was quite unique in the other character events EX, where you actually needed Noctis in your party in order to get all the mission rewards. That itself is not what makes this fight hard though. Of course, if you don't have Noctis, you will have to redo the fight with Noctis in it, and it will probably be a lot harder for you. But in all honesty, that can be circumvented with just using your crystal, you know, your gems to basically revive yourself and just finish the fight that way. But what makes this hard is the gimmick of the boss, which you probably already know if you actually fought the Abyss 9-13. Basically, the Phantom is the boss in Noctis's EX, and it disappears in the turn order, and you really have to pay attention to kind of find out where the boss is in the turn order, because if you don't, you end up gonna be broken, or either you're gonna be hit by thrusts and end up having a huge HP damage actually. So having Noctis here can sort of circumvent and find out where the boss is in the turn order, or you can use Rem as well in order for you to bypass its turn and give yourself a fighting chance. Now, this was a time where there were only a limited amount of level 60 characters, and the shards basically was kind of limited, and I am one of those people that didn't invest in Rem, and so I didn't have her crystal passive to 60 at this time. That's why I didn't end up using her, and I actually sold her weapons beforehand as well when I was starting in the game. So I never max limit broken all her stuff and ended up regretting it during this fight. Overall, like I said earlier, the reason why I picked this as my number 5 pick is because of the gimmick of the boss, and it can end up killing you in one shot if you're not careful enough. And I feel like that alone sort of makes this fight at least in my top 5 personal hardest fight in the level 60 era. So for my number 4 pick, it's going to be Realm's EX fight. Now again, just like with Noctis's EX, this was a time where level 60 characters were kind of scarce, and you only had a very few selections of level 60 characters, and you may find this to be kind of a trend in this video because it is going to be like that. Most of the hardest fights were when we were kind of limited in the characters that we got. Now, what makes this EX fight hard is basically because at that time we were sort of really limited on elemental attacks. As for characters, I think at that time the only level 60 character that actually has quite a lot of different elemental attacks was Alisaie, and it was the previous event to this one. And of course, Realm is one of them as well. Realm is kind of limited in her elemental attacks depending on what your summon is, and that fact alone made this fight a lot harder, especially when the boss sort of recovers and you don't get to kill it just before it changes its color. It just makes this fight a lot harder than it should be. Other elemental attackers at that time were stuck in the level 50 stage, such as Papalymo and even Jet, which you can probably use as well. At that time was stuck in the level 50 stage, so you really had very few characters to pick from. Vincent again is one of those characters basically that has fire and lightning element, and then you have lightning as well, which was at her level 50 stage as well. So the fact that we were kind of limited to like at least 2 characters in order to exploit the weakness made this fight a lot harder. And for my strategy in this fight, I immediately used Ifrit and just bombarded it with every single ability that I had, hoping that it would not change its color, and therefore, you know, making it hard for me to kill it. And as you guys can probably see, it did change color, but I got there in the end, but it wasn't the optimal way to clear this fight. Now, my number 3 pick is Fang's EX fight. Now, you may be wondering why I picked Fang's EX as my number 3 pick. Well, you know, you're probably thinking, well, we have Beatrix at this time, we have Cases at this time, we have Lael at this time, we are in the launch meta. This shouldn't be too hard. Now, that may be true if you are using the launch meta, but if not, this fight can be pretty difficult. And I must say, even with the launch meta, this was one of those fights where one mistake can lead to death. And it took me a few times, obviously, to actually beat this fight without using my own Lael. I did use a friend support as for Lael, just to show you guys it is possible to actually beat this without using your own Lael, of course. But I think the most annoying thing in this fight is the buffs that the boss basically inflict on themselves, and you're kind of stuck in a way to actually just inflict more debuffs than you can. So people like Faris, as much as I wanted to bring her, and I think I attempted to bring her here, I think she was in her level 60 state at this point. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments below. I think the problem was she was too slow, and sometimes the bosses will have multiple turns before I can actually remove the buffs that the boss has. So basically the idea is to just inflict as much debuffs in the end in order to beat this boss. So not only that, they also, I believe, had an enrage mechanic. When you kill one, the other one will buff itself, and then you have to deal with a stronger version, basically. So you're trying to juggle the two, you know, that can buff themselves even if they're not in their enraged mode. At the same time, there's two of them that can attack you and kill you, and you'll probably notice a trend in the last three bosses, that the bosses that I had difficulty with, at least, are bosses that there are two bosses in the end rather than just the one. Because if basically there was only one of them, it'll be a lot easier to manage around and go around the turn order. But this one, there's like two of them and you have to juggle them as much as possible, inflict about the same amount of HP damage just to make sure that, you know, you don't kill one too fast, therefore the other one will go in rage. And yeah, basically Fang made this easier because she is part of the so-called launch meta in a way, and at that time I think I only limit broke her 35 CP to 1, and I think to this day it still remains like that. And I didn't decide to use a Lail, my own Lail as well, so this fight made it a little bit difficult, but quite challenging fight overall. And I think that's why I decided to put this on my number 3, because if you don't have the chase meta, this fight is definitely gonna be a hard one to clear. Now, keeping it on to the trend where there's two bosses, my number 2 pick is Deus EX. Okay guys, this fight actually is a very good contention with my number 1 pick. I am really torn between this one and my top pick, obviously, because they are equally hard and annoying. Okay, let me list down why I hate this fight so much. First of all, there are two bosses on the EX fight, and the second is basically they have an enraged mechanic, much like Fang's event. But this one actually counters all your melee brave attacks. So whenever you do a melee brave attack, it will counter. As I do believe if it has an HP attack connected to it, it won't counter, but if it's just a melee attack, then get ready to be countered by Firaga. My god, it is one of the most annoying things. You do have to bring magic or range physical characters in this fight. So not only we were limited before, now we are extremely limited because a lot of our characters at the time were pretty much melee characters. So yeah, that's one of the things, or at least 3 of the things at the moment that I really hate about this fight. But the worst thing is the counter actually removes any enframe buffs. So that is really annoying. It not only counters you, but it removes all your buffs as well. Now, if not for that, it has multi-slash, which is a melee brave attack plus an HP attack. And not only that, it has this steam building mechanic, which raises at speed, attack, and defense at the same time. And then it has steam burst, which recovers itself from break and does a magic plus HP attack, and also inflicts an initial brave down. My god, this boss had it all. At that time, this was an insane fight. Even with, say, Lail, or you're using the launch meta in some shape, way, or form, this is still one of the most dangerous fights that we ever got. Oh, and did I mention about the enraged mechanic? If you kill one of them, basically the steam is further building, removes all the debuffs, frames included. it grants elude, it raises its speed, attack, and defense again, and it becomes tough to range and melee attacks. So now, even now, if you have range attacks, it's gonna pretty much resist it. And now I think I listed every single thing wrong with this fight, so let's go to the first one. So my number one pick is Agrius EX. Okay, so why did I pick this as my top number one hardest fights in EX character events in the level 60 era? Well, for one thing, it was, well, from my experience, it was mainly luck that actually got me this clear. The double paralysis that I managed to get with Agrius. Now, as you can see, I didn't actually get Agrius's EX, which probably would make this fight a lot easier. And I'm sure there are other people who will be like, well, I think the Deus one is actually really harder because she doesn't get an EX weapon. In Agrius' case, she does get an EX weapon, which makes the fight easier. Well, if you get her EX, yeah. But if you don't, well, it's one of the hardest fights. I think, at least personally for me, this was mainly luck based. I don't know how many times I tried this fight, and as you guys can see, I actually went with the chase meta for this one because there was just no way that I just couldn't beat it. So again, just like the other two fights, this pretty much ticks the why this fight is hard. Basically, there's two bosses on the EX. There is an enrage mechanic once you kill one of them, and basically they have a lot of brave plus HP attack, or increase their brave plus HP attacks. A lot of these hard fights are basically they had a lot of aggressive abilities. Now let's list down the different kinds of attacks that the Argent Efficient can do to you. So the first one is the Thunder Spear, which is a Thunder Magic Brave attack. This has a high turn rate, so it will go pretty quickly, then it will use an HP attack on you. Next, it has Spear Arts, which is Magic Brave attack plus an HP attack. This also inflicts an initial Brave down and an attack down, if you can get your mind on that. Next is the Globated Crush, which again, this can be used when it's levitating. It will recover itself from the break, increase its brave almost to the max, which pretty much can one hit you, and then do a magic HP attack, and then it will touch down afterwards. So this is incredibly, if it's not broken and it uses this, it's just crazy good. Next, it has the Tri Element. Now this is only a brave attack, but it does inflict more debuffs on your party, which is speed down, defense down, and magic resist down. And again, this has a high turn rate. So the main mechanic of the boss basically here is when it begins chanting. Now basically it will levitate and it will remove all the debuffs that it has, and then increases its brave. And this is where it gets really hard if you're inflicted with a lot of debuffs, because when it increases its brave, it's basically to the point where it can one-shot anyone in your party. Now, if you didn't manage to break it, the Globated Crush is usually the next follow-up move that it will have. Now, granted, you will sort of get enough turns to try and break it, but if you are inflicted with these debuffs like attack down, speed down, this will lower your chance to actually breaking the boss. Now that isn't the main problem. The problem is it actually has a much powerful version of this chanting. At the beginning it will only use begins chanting, but once you reduce its HP enough, it will start to use begins a powerful chant, which again it will levitate and remove all the debuffs that you applied to it, increasing its brave to astronomical numbers, and basically giving itself a lot of buffs: defense up, attack up, speed up, initial brave up, max brave up, and actually has a low turn rate, as you guys can see in this video. So basically, if you don't have a debuffer, or you can't even inflict one debuff, that defense up buff that it actually gives itself is crazy strong. You won't even, like, you'll tickle it pretty much. So what you need to do is actually debuff it, at least, in order for you to remove that defense up buff, and then start, you know, lowering its brave. Now, if you're lucky enough to paralyze, as you guys can see here, I managed to do, this is my lucky break, basically having two of those essential silence, or it's essential paralyzed, and you're lucky. Now, we haven't even talked about the enrage mechanic yet, and you probably thought, oh, that's probably the enrage mechanic. No, there's the bursting with magic energy, which further raises the attack and defense, and this is not a framed buff or anything. It's just an aura that it gets, which is kind of crazy if you think about it. So, I think I made my case why I made this the hardest fight in the level 60 era, at least for the character events EXs, because even with the chase meta, this was a difficult fight. I think even having Agrius EX will make this fight maybe easier, but it definitely is still hard, and it's still going to be in anyone's top 3 at least of hardest EX fights in the level 60 era. Now, I do feel like I want to end the video right here. Remember to click like, subscribe, and share this video if you found it fun at all. As always, I'd like to hear from you guys. Tell me down in the comments below your top 5 hardest fights in the level 60 era. And of course, I guess you can use Lost Chapter down in the comments below, but if you really want to be just like me and just list down like character events EX, please leave it down in the comments below. Let me know which fight gave you the most trouble, because to me it's definitely going to be Agrius. Well, I don't know about definite, but it's a toss-up between Agrius and Deus. Both of them extremely hard fights, at least in my own personal opinion. Remember to follow me on Twitter and on Facebook at Munchkins Gaming. This is Munchkins logging off, and I'll see you guys in the next level.